Hello everyone, this is Mr. Taylor with Young Engineers today. We're going to be finishing up Lesson 2 with our 5th and 6th grade course of 1-2 3D design. First we're going to review a few patterns and start some new patterns using the pattern tool. You have rectangular, circular, path, and mirror. With a rectangular pattern, makes multiple copies of a single object, lets you move them in two directions. Click on the rectangular pattern icon, make sure your object is selected, which is using the solid feature here, and then after you click solid, you'll click on the directions and then click on an edge of your object. And then you have arrows where you can move the direction, vertically or horizontally. You choose how many blocks you want to replicate, as well as the distance between them. You can do even multiple copies. Okay, then you have the circular pattern tool, which creates a pattern of selected solids about an axis. Very similar in the process of using the rectangular pattern tool. And you can see how it can go in two different axes, your X and your Y. You can pattern at different angles or full, so you can see here. And you always will have an arrow that will show you the direction in which you're going to be moving. Okay, now we're going to look at the mirror pattern. This is very helpful for mirroring moves that you need to replicate. For example, we made a cat last class. I can mirror the ear, eye, and whiskers, and only have to put them on once. What I do is I use under Sketch, I use the polyline tool to serve as my mirroring plane. And you'll see here in this image, I made a polyline, clicked on the in one spot where the crosshairs is here, and then I just drag across, and then clicked. Please make sure you hit escape, because if you don't, it'll allow you to keep drawing more lines. All right. If your line isn't perfectly centered, that's okay. Click on your line, keep your mouse pressed to move the line. You will need to change your camera angle to change this. Okay, so now I click on the mirror tool. I highlight the eye that I made. All right. After I highlight the eye, you can see the mirror tool needs to be on solid. I'm next going to click mirror plane and then select the line. You'll see this red box will appear, and my other eye will appear. Okay, the red box is representing the mirror plane. Okay, there you go. Now we can make sure we do grouping. We have ungrouping. When you go to group or ungroup, you make sure you have a whole object highlighted, and then we have ungrouping these objects as well as any object in the group that you combined before. So if you had combinations of objects, then group those combinations together, it would ungroup all of them instead of ungrouping them step by step. Make sure you try these out. It'll help a lot. Okay, now we talked a little about the snap tool in our first lesson, and we're reviewing it now and coming back to it. Now your snap tool is really helpful. It helps group objects, but they group the objects flush. As you can see here in this example, I click on that tool, I click on one face, I click on another face, and then they snap together. Okay. Now let's finish up path patterns. Okay. We're going to do patterns along a path. Okay. What we'll do is you have to first draw a geometric line. For example, use the polyline under Sketch, you draw that out. Now, when I click on this tool, I'm going to highlight my box, just like my other objects. Click on the solid and highlight it. And then I'm going to click on path and click on a side. You'll see an arrow appear, and I just drag along. This tool here will tell me how many I would like of these boxes I want to follow along my pattern. This arrow here will move it along. Okay, we've gone a lot over making objects using 3D primitives, but let's say you don't want to use one of these custom primitives, you want to make your own shape. So we can do that with Sketch. It's like drawing freehand, okay? Now, there are two ways of doing this. First, you have the sketch icons, which you can see here under sketch. You have some basic 2D, and then you can draw with lines, okay? Then you have primitive 2D shapes here, and you can work with those. The major difference between the pre-made shapes is that one has more control over individual sides, where the other are giving a like a uniformed amount that is distributed throughout. Okay, make sure you experiment with all of these. They're great tools, and they pretty much do all the same thing. But one key thing is when you're using them, it's just like you're drawing on paper. If you want them to be able to turn into a 2D shape, you need to make sure they turn this bluish color. If they don't, that means they're not completely connected. Okay? Now, we're going to make these 3D. We got to make them 3D if we want to print them on a 3D printer. Okay? So we're going to be using the construct tools. The construct tools allow us to bring these from 2D to 3D. The easiest is the extrude. You click on the extrude, click on the 2D object. You see how the 2D object has that bluish color, and then it will it'll raise that up. Then we have sweep. Sweeping is the equivalent of a path pattern, except it stretches the object instead of copying it many times along a path. You will need to define the path first. The commands are just like the path pattern tool. And then lastly, you have revolve. Revolve is just like making a circular pattern. You must define an axis to revolve your shape. So think about if I had a half sphere and I rotated it around a center point, I would end up making it a full circle. There's still more for us to cover. For example, what if we wanted to make a chunk out of a solid object? Like if we were to model an apple with a bite in it, we can do combine. Combination buttons let us combine two objects together, take solid chunks out of the objects, or take only overlapping portions of these two objects. Alright, so you can see the three different ways of doing that. Alright, what I would like you to do, and what we did in class, is we took two spheres, one with a radius of 15, one of 5. And we're going to mimic it to look like the Death Star. Alright? So, the combination tool that you're going to use is the subtract. And the way you do that is you will take that small sphere, put it on top of it, click the subtract tool. The solid major object you want to subtract from is the large. You would click on that, and then you would click on the second button, which allows you to click on the smaller sphere, and then you hit enter and subtract. All right, we're going to stop there. We'll pick up, continue this with next class. Thank you, and keep practicing. Bye-bye.